Hey, everybody, this is Mike Portnoy from the Winery Dogs and Sons of Apollo and Transatlantic and Dream Theater and Twisted Sister and whoever else you might be listening to right now. And you're listening to Appetite for Distortion with Brando.
You know where you are.
This is Appetite for Distortion.
Welcome to the podcast, Appetite for Distortion, episode number 384. My name is Brando. Our first guest of 2023, Mr. Mike Portnoy. How are you, sir?
Good. 384 is my lucky numbers. This is going to be the greatest interview ever.
I knew it. That's why it's like I planned it that way, of course. So where are you zooming in from, if you don't mind me asking?
I'm at home. I live in Pennsylvania, Lehigh Valley, Pennsylvania, and I'm here for a few more weeks before hitting the road.
Right on. And I can't wait because you're going to be in my neck of the woods. I'm currently in Queens, so I can go two ways, either into the city or Long Island to see the Winery Dogs.
Or both.
You're right. You were ready with that response.
Yeah.
But before we get to that, because I was curious where you were, because I believe, if Wikipedia is correct, which it usually is, of course, you're from Long Beach, Long Island?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay, because I'm a Long Island boy, even though I'm currently in Queens.
Where are you from?
Baldwin.
Oh, God, that's where Dee Snider's from. And my old friends, the Crumbsuckers, were based out of there back in the day. Yeah.
Crumbsuckers. I'm not familiar with them.
Oh, yeah. They were an awesome New York hardcore band back in the 80s. And they were good friends of mine. And they were my friend Chuck Lenahan and Gary Meskill. They were based in Baldwin as well. So you're right by Sunrise Highway and all that. Yeah. I was right south of you in Long Beach.
Yeah.
I was in Long Beach for about 35 years or so.
Okay. I'd like to say, although I'm from Brooklyn, even though I moved when I was 1.5, just to me, it sounds more, I don't know, authentic to be a Brooklyn Jew as opposed to a Long Island Jew. That's my joke I've been saying for nearly 40 years. But I wanted to know, because I've visited Long Beach plenty, mainly during my college years, because that was where a lot of the college bars were at.
Chauncey's in the West End. Yep.
So me growing up on Long Island, I'm lucky because one of the jobs I do for iHeart is work for Q1043. You can hear it in all the tri-state. So I grew up listening to the radio. So reading up about you and your history, not just Long Island, and try to bond there. Your dad was a DJ? Was a radio DJ?
He was, but he relocated to Carmel, California when my mom and dad got divorced when I was really, really young. So he actually, it's a funny story. I won't get too in detail of it, but he saw the movie Play Misty for Me by Clint Eastwood. Classic. And Clint Eastwood was a disc jockey in Carmel, California on KRML radio. And my dad saw the movie and loved the location and loved the idea of being a disc jockey. So he picked up, moved to Carmel and got a job at KRML radio and literally had the exact job in the same exact studio in the same exact city as Clint Eastwood in that film.
Brilliant. No stalkers for him though? Did he?
No, but it's funny. Yeah. I used to do the radio show with him, when I'd go visit him and spend the summers with him. So I was like this little 6-year-old celebrity back then in the early 70s. And one time I remember calling up the operator to place a collect call. And I was like, I need to place a collect call from Mike. And the operator's like, is this Mike Portnoy? He should recognize my voice at like 6 years old.
Wow.
That was my first claim to fame. But yeah, I grew up listening to New York rock radio. When I was a teenager in the 70s, it was WPLJ.
Okay. Yeah, that was rock for a while. And
yeah.
I think it's Christian now.
I don't even know. Yeah.
That's the way it goes. Because I know there's so much to talk to you about, but it's just the beginnings that fascinate me. And when you see somebody, like, I guess for me, that you become a fan of, I guess like it was with Dee Snider, right? It was seeing somebody where I'm from, kind of see where they can be. That's kind of how I look at it. So they kind of stay local until we move on to the Winery Dogs. I went to Hofstra University for college.
So I went there for a semester as well.
You did. I did not know that. Okay.
Yeah, after we formed Dream Theater at Berkeley, we came back to Long Island, and I did 2 semesters at Five Towns and then 1 semester at Hofstra.
Oh, okay. And
Yeah.
Five Towns College is probably, I don't know, 5 minutes away from my mom's house in Dix Hills.
Wow. Yeah.
See, those are things I like finding out. So I got my radio start. Here's the connection at Hofstra, 88.7 FM radio, Hofstra University, the aggressive edge. And it was my induction to, as you just mentioned before, Dream Theater, and no radio station was playing them. So I'm just curious, when the first time you heard yourself on the radio and your reaction to it, because I am lucky I got exposed to Dream Theater through college radio and through progressive rock and more, because it wasn't just always the same bands. Terrestrial radio wasn't teaching me that.
Right. Yeah, I remember distinctively the very first time hearing myself on the radio. It was around 1986 or 87, and Dream Theater weren't Dream Theater yet. We were still called Majesty, and we had put out this demo, a 1986 demo, the Majesty demo, and it was with our first singer, Chris Collins. And around 86 or 87, WBAB had Fingers Metal Shop, and Fingers was the first person to play us on Metal Shop. But, you know, we weren't signed yet. It was a demo. I think he used to do this thing once a week where he'd play a local demo, Fresh Metal or whatever it was called. And he played a track off the Majesty demo. And I remember we were at rehearsal. We had a rehearsal place in Huntington, Long Island, and we would gather around the radio because we found out Fingers was going to play one of the songs. And we all sat in my van listening to BAB. What is it? 102.3, I think. And
102.3 WBAB, Long Island Classic Rock. I worked there for a year. So
yeah, and it was Fingers. And then, so, you know, he played us just as this local demo. But then sure enough, when we signed our first record deal in 88 and put out our first album in 89, he, of course, got totally behind us and then started playing the album regularly, you know, before anybody else in the world was playing us.
Oh, that's cool. I love the days when radio had an impact. Like, I mean, it still does, but I mean, when it was only radio, now you can get it in so many different ways. But yeah, I was at BAB for a while. I know Fingers and all his clown tattoos and everything. So that's very, see how you know these things. That's very cool. So to really flash forward, well, maybe we'll flash forward a bit with the Winery Dogs, because there's 7 years. I love all the press release that says the aptly a dog's life, you know, for Winery Dogs. 7
You know
years.
what? I never even put 2 and 2 together. That's true.
That's a good public relations person.
Yeah.
Who knows that. So I guess, is it because all of you, the 3 of you, I shouldn't say all of you, you, Richie, and Billy, also have your other projects, and why it took 7 years? Because it wasn't just COVID. COVID. So I guess what went into the hiatus, or we'll reconvene when it's right. Why 7 years?
Well, we did our first 2 albums back to back. So we did the first album, I think it was around 2012, toured throughout 2013 and 14, then immediately did Hot Streak, and then immediately went on the road for that for like a year or so. So it was 2 back-to-back cycles, a lot of touring, a lot of shows, a lot of groundwork. And after those 2 cycles, I think the 3 of us felt, okay, you know, let's just take a breather, because we all have other things in our lives, you know, other projects and other bands. So I think we wanted to just take a step back and have some time to regroup with some of our other things. And we always knew we would come back together at some point. We just wanted to take a little break. And around 2019, we got together to do a string of shows in the summer throughout America, just for the fun of it. No new record to support or anything like that. We were just playing just to have fun. And that really reignited the spark between the 3 of us. And we realized how much we love playing together and how much fun we have together. And so we knew we inevitably had to do a 3rd record as soon as we could align our schedules. And then COVID hit. That kind of put it on the back burner for about a year or so. But by summer of 21, once things were loosening up with lockdowns, we put it on a calendar. We met up at Richie's place in LA and started work on this 3rd album. And spent a good part of the next year or so putting it together, and now here we are with it finally coming out.
Right on. So aptly named, to use that word again. I saw it, and sometimes the word gets stuck. My vocabulary is limited. New album 3 is coming out February 3rd. So the single and the video out for Xanadu, one of those words that I've always heard, never saw it spelled. I'm like, okay, That's how you spell Xanadu.
You must not be a Rush fan then.
I'm a Rush fan. I know who I'm speaking with. I mean, and later if we have time, I know you just gave a what was like a tribute to Neil Peart and
Yeah.
everything that was pretty sweet. This goes back to radio. This will tie it in. For the longest time, I wasn't a Rush fan. It was something about Geddy's voice. It just wasn't for me. And I made the mistake of saying I don't like them to a DJ when I was up at WPDH in Poughkeepsie. Give him a shout out, Jack George, who is as big of, just like you, a major, you're either super into Rush or you're not. And I made the mistake and it looked like I insulted his mother, basically. But as I've gotten older, I've appreciated them more and more. So I don't know their entire catalog, but I've learned to really appreciate and respect Rush. So yeah, so I'm not I don't have a Rush podcast, to put it that way.
You just don't know how to spell their songs, but
yeah, I guess I know there wasn't one of the ones that were played on I would play on the radio often. So it was just one of those. So either way, is that a dedication to Rush out of curiosity?
No.
Okay.
No, they're completely different.
All right. Well, I figured I'd ask just since we're kind of on that.
I shouldn't have even brought it up. My bad.
No, I want to be.
What were you going to say about our songs, Xanadu?
Well, I also want to be exposed for my lack of Rush knowledge. I have to learn. I felt kind of like a whole world was behind me, and I really didn't get it. And I was like, Rush, it's only for kind of geeky metal people. It's not for me. I was all about the 80s sleaze. And then as I've gotten older, my beard is not as gray as yours. As I've gotten older, though, I've learned to really appreciate and respect them. So about your song, Xanadu, was that the first one song you laid down? I know it's the first song that's out, that's public, it's single, but when you went in to start recording this new album 3, where did it start?
Xanadu was if I remember correctly, the 4th song we wrote. We ended up writing the blueprints for about maybe 13 or 14 songs musically, and then only cherry picked about 10 of them to develop for the album. I think Xanadu might have been the 4th thing we jammed on and put together musically, but it was the first song that Richie, at the end of the night when Billy and I went back to our hotel, Xanadu was the first one that he pulled up and then started singing some melodies and some lyrics to, and then presented to me and Billy the next day in the studio. So that was the first one that he developed with lyrics and vocals.
Okay.
And as soon as he did, we knew it was a great, strong track. And at least in my head, I always knew that should be the first single. And sure enough, it ended up being.
This is a true story. As I'm listening to the album this morning, because thankfully I'm privy to it to prepare for this interview. A lot of stuff I listened to the headphones. Didn't want to listen to the headphones. Wanted it out loud. My wife's doing work on the couch, laptop. She's not a Rush fan. She likes Guns N' Roses. She's a Dave Matthews fan. That's the big thing. That's the joke with me and my listeners, because I respect him. I just can't. By the way, happy birthday, Dave Matthews. I guess I could say that. So she's a Dave Matthews fan. I'm playing the new Winery Dogs, and she just looks up, probably up to track 3, gotten through Xanadu, Mad World, Breakthrough. I like this.
Yeah. Well,
So
I'll
that's
tell
an
you
honest
what,
opinion.
Here we are talking about Rush and prog and everything, but the reality is Winery Dogs are not a prog band at all. And we're also not really a metal band at all. And that's why I love doing this, because everything I do in my career with all my other bands and projects is rooted in either prog or metal. But Winery Dogs is a whole different animal. It's more rooted in classic rock, like the 60s and 70s power trio sound. It's got more of a bluesy, funky R&B thing that Richie brings to it. And the fact that your wife somehow caught her ear. I think this band really is all about kind of hooky, memorable songs that that have great vocal lines and great choruses and hooks. So even though we're kind of, all 3 of us are known as these flashy players, really when it comes to the Winery Dogs, it's really all about the song. And I think it's probably the most accessible band of anything I've ever done. I really do think if there's any band that could go on tour opening for Aerosmith, or go on tour opening for, Deep Purple or whoever, the list goes on and on and on of the bands that we could be compatible with, or the radio songs that could get radio play, or, get Grammy attention, or, whatever. I think of Winery Dogs is hands down the most accessible thing I'm a part of.
Accessible is a good word. I like that because I wanted to give you, because I can tell you I liked it, and it's true. I did like it. I listened to the whole thing through, all 10 tracks, but then you just get an honest opinion just like that. She doesn't always like all the guest music that I play.
Right.
You know, she's like, it's not for me, but good. I'm glad you like it. But
Right.
no, she's like, I like it. I like it. Speaking of things, because I have gotten her, if you haven't noticed, behind me, I have some Guns N' Roses posters. I don't know if you also noticed the name of the podcast you're on.
Mhm.
Appetite for Distortion. So as she's taken me to Dave Matthews shows, God bless her. I've taken her to GNR shows. She likes it. She loves it. So she has her opinions. That's what I'm kind of here for, Mr. Opinion. This was like 10 years ago. So I'm curious. I'll give credit to the listener that brought this up. It was, I guess, maybe when Twitter was new. It was a quick exchange between you and Matt Sorman. You had an opinion on November Rain.
Right.
He responded. Have you guys ever met just to talk about drumming? Because you had it's like, why does this epic song that I love have drum fills? And it's Axl's vision, and like people like Ringo don't use drum fills, and it was like a beef that ended happy.
No, it was a misunderstanding. It was one of those things, one of those Twitter wars that kept blowing up out of nowhere. And I just randomly posted it. November Rain came on, wherever, and I heard the fill, the Pat Boone, Debbie Boone fill, and it dawned on me, oh my God, it's literally happening every 4 bars or every 8 bars, and I counted them, and it was something like 37 times the same fill. And look, I have nothing but respect for Guns N' Roses and Matt Sorum. Matt's a great, great drummer, and he's done amazing stuff both inside and outside of Guns N' Roses. So I never am trying to insult another drummer. I could find something impressive or inspiring from any musician out there, and I never want to come down or insult any of them. But I just kind of randomly posted that random thought, like, why is this same fill happening 37 times or whatever it was? And I regret that I did that, because it probably came off as an insult to Matt, and I did not mean it for it to be. But he responded something to the effect of, "Oh, at least I don't need a 100-piece drum kit to play." And then I was like, "Well, hey, you're talking to the biggest Ringo and Beatles fan of all time.
Right.
Don't pull that card with me." And we ended up privately emailing each other, and I apologized, and I said, "Look, I really meant no disrespect whatsoever." So I do regret that tweet, and have learned to kind of be a little more careful about the observations I make online.
Well, I mean, I understand what you're saying. That's a shame, because I look at it again. This is like 10 years ago. This is non-existent, and it's nice to know that you were so. What was nothing? His response wasn't angry, but privately you took care of it, and that should remain private. But that's what clickbait can do, and my interviews have suffered that, because I go back and I read the actual tweets,
Right,
and it just sounds like, and it makes sense why you're a Rush fan. This intelligent tweet where the average fan, me, the non-musician, that's why I'm in radio, would not have noticed that. And I just find that as like an interesting fact. Like, not everything has to be so intense about the song. I get that's just something you observed, and it was just the early days of Twitter where it was taken out of context. So,
well, what do you mean the early days? It's worse than ever now.
I know.
I actually stopped doing interviews for about 2 years. You're one of the first interviews I'm doing coming back, because I got tired of feeding these clickbait headlines to all these websites. It's infuriating. But you know what? Let's not even go there. Let's switch the topic.
Sure. Well, I'll just say this.
The downside of the internet,
I got you. And I'll say this, and you don't have to respond. I happily gave Rachel Bolan an interview and Snake Sabo an interview, and did not mention Sebastian Bach once. And
Good
then
for you.
it's so funny. All the like, maybe an article would come out of it. That DJ still asking. He just came out the other day, and it's blowing up all over the internet. And I'm just like, it just makes fans angry. Like, they're talking about it anyway. I want to talk about what fans are actually sending me. If we can just stay on GNR just for a little bit, because it got me thinking. Actually, I'll give a credit to Doug Roush. He goes, and the best of both worlds collide, because I'm assuming you're just one of his favorite artists, and I'm one of his favorite podcasts.
Oh, that's nice. I actually know Doug. He's a nice guy.
He sounds like he knows you, so that's good that it's not a Play Misty situation.
It might be. I'm not saying it's not. I don't know.
Okay. See, call back to earlier in the interview. I'm good like that. Would he ever consider playing with Guns? And I guess I have a follow up with that.
Okay.
Because I interviewed Josh Freese a while ago, And I said, don't name names, but during Chinese Democracy, when they were auditioning all these drummers, did your name come up at all?
Not that I know of.
Okay.
I've never heard of that.
I've never heard of it either. I just figured I'd ask
No.
because you work with everybody. So that was a shot in the dark.
Well, I'm 1 degree away from Guns N' Roses because I play with Bumblefoot with Sons of Apollo, and obviously he played with Guns N' Roses for many years.
Sure.
But if the question you're asking is would I consider playing with Guns N' Roses? I mean, of course, if I was available and I could, I some of the most fun and cherished experiences I've had in my career have been these hired gun gigs, going out with Avenged Sevenfold and helping them, or going out with Twisted Sister and helping them. So yeah, I absolutely love the hired gun scenario. Of all the things I do, there's some bands I'm the leader of and other bands I'm just a collaborator in. But the times that I've been a hired gun, not only Avenged and Twisted, but I've also done hired gun gigs with Stone Sour and Fate's Warning and Overkill. All of those situations where I've been called upon to just play drums, quote unquote, and just be the drummer and just be there to serve a band and their music. Those have been some of the most fun tours of my life. No stress, no responsibility other than just being the best drummer I can for the band and for the music. I've loved those situations. So if a scenario ever came about again with a Guns N' Roses or whoever, you fill in the blank.
Sure.
If it was a band whose music I like and respect, I would take it in a heartbeat.
That's cool. And I like that answer because for one, it was a shot in the dark because of how many people you have worked with. But yeah, that just to hear that scenario, because sometimes, and I believe there was a documentary on it.
Yeah.
The word hired guns almost has a negative connotation to it, but it shouldn't. I don't think.
I mean, look, I look
a
at
role.
like Dean Castronova, hit pay dirt with Journey, and Eric Singer hit it with Kiss, and Scott Travis hit it with Judas Priest. Those are three drummers who I knew before they were playing in any of those three bands. And they got themselves killer, great, legacy, lifelong career gigs. So yeah, I would absolutely love a gig like that if it came around. If the right band, the right gig came around. Yeah, that's sounds like so much fun.
Well, it seems like you're busy enough now with the Winery Dogs, and I guess if I don't get to, just to mention, I thought it was really cute what you and your daughter with the Beatles trivia. My God, my wife and I love the Beatles too. Like I said, I'm GNR, she's Dave Matthews, but we meet at the Beatles. You both would destroy us. Destroy us. Like,
we
wow.
would. Yeah, no question we would.
I'm not even gonna pretend.
My daughter destroys me, and I could pretty much destroy anybody else. So yeah,
it's impressive. It really was impressive. But to one last thing before I guess wrap up with the album, because I want to, of course, talk about the current thing. But do you have a favorite, maybe GNR drumming wise song, maybe style? I don't want to say like Adler versus Sorum versus Brain or any of these people, but is there a groove that perhaps affected you or just made you think like, oh wow, that's cool? Or
well, I guess the first one that comes to mind is, what is it? You Will Be Mine.
Okay.
I mean, when you talk about a classic drum intro, that's surely up there with them. So it's, that's the first one that immediately pops into my head.
Right on. Okay, so now let's go to your drumming. Is there, out of the tracks that are on this upcoming album, is there one you're most looking forward to everybody else hearing? Because I've already heard it. So,
drum tracks, you mean?
Like whether it's you're drumming on the album, on the song, I should say. It was my kind of like my creative way of saying what song are you most looking forward to getting out there. It was my trying to be creative way of saying it.
I have to approach every song with the Winery Dogs from a drumming perspective. I'm always really first and foremost trying to serve the song more so than any of the other things I do. The drumming in the Winery Dogs is really very song and groove oriented. But some of the songs that I get to stretch out a little bit more, a song like Xanadu's got some of it. There's a song called Gaslight on the album, which is really,
Cool.
full on double bass, kind of shredding, aggressive. So that's my wheelhouse, is doing that kind of aggressive kind of drumming. So Gaslight's got that. And then there's two songs in the album where we have kind of open-ended improv jams on the back end of the song. The song Pharaoh and the song The Red Wine. Both of those end with kind of jams. And what you're hearing on the album is us literally jamming in the moment, on the spot, jamming. And
That's
those
cool.
were the keeper tracks that ended up on the album, just hearing the three of us go for it and almost not even knowing where we were going to go. Because that's one of the fun things about this band live, is having those kind of open-ended improv moments. And there's a couple that made it onto the album. So those two particular songs have that.
Oh, cool. Because I was going to mention the Red Wine, the last track. I like the way it fades out. Now
Yeah.
I'm knowing that it's an organic jam, that it
Yeah, it
just
was totally
elevates.
organic. Totally.
Yeah.
Yep.
I love that. So as you guys are also the road dogs, in addition to the Winery Dogs, and you get out on the road, what cities are you looking forward to playing the most?
Any and all. I mean,
Any
we
and
love
all?
playing. We love playing. Obviously, you hit your main markets, New York, Chicago, LA, London, Paris. Those are always like the big cities. But sometimes you play these little small shows in the middle of nowhere that you have very low expectations from, and they end up being the best gigs on the tour. So you never know. But we just love playing live. This is such a great live band. And, Billy and I are the type of rhythm section that just play very, very spontaneously and off the cuff. And you never know what fills you're going to get or what riffs you're going to get and what kind of jams you're going to get. So I love playing live with this band. It's just a great, great live band.
And with that, I'll just follow up with one more fan question. This is from Robert Samuelson. Ask him if he's planning on riding a scooter around Nashville again this time on the Winery Dogs tour.
Depends on the weather, man. I love the Lime scooters on tour, man. Those are such a great thing to jump on and jump off of and get to where you're going. It's a lot more fun than an Uber, if the weather's
True.
nice,
Very, very true. Yeah, I know where you are, where I am. It's cold. It's not terrible, but it's cold. I don't know. Is winter done? Is it we ever? Is
Oh no. Unfortunately, I think
I don't
we're
think
still
so.
have a little ways to go here.
Yeah, I think so. But that does it for us. So, Mike Portnoy, thank you so much for your time. I hope we get to do this again.
My pleasure, man. Thank you for having me.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Very nice guy. I knew that. I expected that. Just you see all of his interviews. He's so relatable. He just seems like the guy he always was. When we were talking about the young Mike Portnoy with his dad and the radio, and it just seems like he's just the same guy, just like me, getting older and grayer, but he has a full head of hair, unlike me. But that does it for this episode of Appetite for Distortion. A couple things before I get out of here. I want to thank everybody for the response from the last episode when I was talking about just the ultimate demise of Doug Goldstein's book with me, I guess, and just laying it out there. It'll whenever you guys ask me questions online about it, I guess I'll respond whatever's appropriate. But just again to follow up on that, what I said in that episode. Just disappointing that it didn't work out, but moving on, getting to interview people like Mike Portnoy, moving on to Appetite for Distortion. It was taken away from me doing things from the podcast. So now I get to focus on you guys, and it's paying off. Literally, I guess that's another bad segue. I want to specifically thank Angel from Bulgaria. It amazes me where people are in the world that find this podcast. And I've said this throughout the years that it's one thing if it's me talking to Mike Portnoy and where it's all New Yorkers listening in East Coast. No, all over the world, people where English is not your first language and you're listening to me talk about Guns N' Roses. Thank you. So he just tweeted at me, say, how can I make a donation? I gave him, after there was a faulty, I apparently I'm big enough to have a fake Twitter out there that was giving out fake information. So if you see anything other than at the AFD podcast spelt correctly, it's not me. It's me. Okay, come on, you see all my terrible humor translates to social media. So if you see that, nobody can recreate the dumbness that goes in my mind sometimes. See, just like that sentence. So Angel, nothing large, but I mean, that's not the point. The point is that he reached out. So if you want to do the same thing, he just used PayPal at the AFD show at gmail.com, the AFD show at gmail.com. I do have a Patreon that I barely promote because just like in real life, I'm not good at asking for things. I'm really not. My wife might say different. but even that took a while. I just don't let me do it, or I don't feel like I'm good enough to. It's a whole other issue. Like that's why I tell you about my mental problems, because it's true. I'm like, I'm not worthy of this. But I'm reminded all the time of like people like by Angel who don't send in. It's not like that's happening often, most of the time, which is food for my soul, I guess, money for my soul. People just saying, hey, I just found you. Actually, let me look this up right now if I can. Give him a shout out, because this is also gives me a chance to promote my YouTube. So again, between episodes, not only does the conversation continue on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, but I'm always promoting and posting new clips on YouTube. So where is would have been better if I was. Oh, there we go. John Walls. Okay, I'm glad I found it. So he goes, hi, Brando. And he commented on my most recent podcast, the Happy 2023 one. Hey, Brando, just found your channel. Love that I found somebody who loves guns as much as I do. Great stuff here, bro. He responds seconds later, because you could see that kind of stuff. As soon as I press publish, you talk about people just finding you, LOL. So that happens. And let me see if I could find it was another cool tweet, because there are a lot of you, just thank you that DM me, just if it's Guns N' Roses news, if it's just telling me about your sobriety, because I talk about me not drinking for 7 years, things like that, about mental health. I really appreciate it. So, okay, so I found it. I'm done stalling. Richard Lundy tweeted at me. I just started listening because of the Snake interview. So I started from the beginning. I just want to say I love the podcast. I'm glad I finally found somebody that feels the same way about Miles Kennedy. I also feel the same way about Eric Grunwald. Very cool. Well, you're going to enjoy the Miles Kennedy interview if you haven't listened to that yet. And we'll see in the future if I get Eric Grunwald. I will not be asking him about Sebastian Bach either. And I'll give a shout out specifically to who Phil from the UK, who I once called some guy who listens to these podcasts at twice the speed, because that's apparently how people talk where he's from in the UK. Wow, that's also dedication. Speaking faster than I normally speak at my New York, Brooklyn, Long Island, Queens pace. That's wow. I can't imagine it. So however you listen, wherever you listen, thanks for listening. Okay. So this does it for this episode with Mike Portnoy. What is to come? Well, I'll tell you what's to come. Actually, let me lift up my laptop, because as you could see behind me, I'm in my new studio, my new apartment. Things are a little different here. My cats still jump on it and eat off it. I have a tooth again, so I'm no more lisping for me. But I'm going to tell you, we got the director coming from the Rock and Roll Fantasy Camp, like the director of the entire thing. So there's actually a documentary, Rock Camp, on Amazon, on YouTube. We'll be talking about that. Of course, it's great. If you watch the trailer, which I posted, right away, it shows him, Slash, and Roger Daltrey. Like right away. So I'm like, this is perfect. Perfect. And shout out to, I believe it was 80s Girl on Twitter that recommended that. Sorry if I got that wrong, but I would also give credit to the person who recommended that. And last up that I've scheduled for at least this month, Sean Bevan returning to the podcast. I believe that I mentioned that last time. So that'll be later on in the month. So still plenty of time to send in questions to Sean if you want, whatever he can try to answer about Chinese democracy. Okay, so that does it for this episode. And in the words of Axl Rose concerning Chinese democracy, when will you see the next episode? You'll see it. I don't know if soon is the word.